Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Tori and welcome back to another mailbag. Now, if you don't know already, I'm switching everything that I was still doing on True Blazer Fan. I'm moving it all over to here on Blazers Uprise. So Pulse, Monday Mailbag, your trade and offseason ideas, which I won't be doing for a while because the offseason's pretty much done. But anyway, all that content is moving over here to Blazers Uprise, which is why you're watching a mailbag on this channel right now. Now, I like to make announcements here or there in my mailbags, and I got one for you right now. Starting in September or October, I'm going to be trying to do daily live streams. I haven't settled on a time yet, but it'd be cool to have a Monday through Friday, like 2:30 to 3:30 type of live stream, podcast type of show. It'd be awesome to have some consistent daily content like that. I'd be hosting it most of the time, but we'd also have Eric, the guy I've streamed with in the past. I'd have him host here or there when I needed a break or if I couldn't stream. So I'd be able to keep that consistent for you guys. That would be on top of post-game live streams. Live streaming is going to be a big thing for this channel moving forward. I'm also giving you the opportunity to appear with me on live streams. Now, if you've been paying attention lately, I've started up a Patreon. It's just a little way for you to help out the channel, but anybody who donates $25 a month or more will be able to appear with me on live streams. All you need is a Skype email as well as some headphones with a mic on it, and you can appear on the live stream with me. I thought that'd be a cool way to give back to you guys if you wanted to help me out by donating $25 or more on Patreon. Now, the Patreon link is in the description below, and even if you don't want to donate $25, I'd appreciate $1. We got almost 2,000 subs. If everybody donated $1, that would really help me to achieve what I want to achieve with this channel. So anyway, enough selling out from me. Let's jump straight into your questions that you guys gave me, I think Thursday of last week. I had a midweek mailbag, so all these questions are pretty up to date. Randall Wellman said, should we trade Hassan for LA at some point? I assume you mean LaMarcus Aldridge, and I don't think so. I think that the Blazer fan base overrates LaMarcus Aldridge a little bit too much, and I think part of that is the nostalgia factor. The dude's not a good defender in the modern NBA. He can't get out on the perimeter. He also doesn't like playing center, so you're stuck playing him at power forward, or else he's gonna be unhappy a little bit. He can't really shoot threes, so he doesn't really space the floor all that much at the power forward position, which is frankly what we need next to Dame and CJ. He's not even an efficient player, really. The only way he works is if he's a guy who you constantly feed in the low post and he gets going to the point where teams have to double him, and it opens up other things for the rest of the offense. As a third or fourth best player, I don't like LaMarcus Aldridge's fit next to our guards and next to Nurkic. So no, I don't think we should pursue LA at some point. I would bring him back later in his career as a backup 5 behind Nurk, but that's it. I'm not trading anything of value for him, and he's not a guy who I particularly want back. Eugenio Benazzi says, why not Tolliver in the starting 5? He is a stretch 4 and he can space the floor, and his defense is pretty good. And I wouldn't say his defense is pretty good. His defense is about average. Last year, I think he was like a 37% three-point shooter, which is slightly above average. Those are the only two things he does well at all. I think we need a more well-rounded overall player at that power forward spot. War of Mankind says, I hate to sound pessimistic. There's not a big chance we are winning a chip with this roster. The building around 2 undersized guards won't work. We are bottom tier in assists and ball movement. We rely heavily on pick and rolls for Dame and CJ. We never hardly have highlight plays. We need an all-star wing like a small forward or power forward who can shoot very well, like a Blake Griffin or even Gallinari. Now, I don't understand that because we did make the Western Conference Finals with Maurice Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu as our starting forwards. I think if we had like a Robert Covington and Otto Porter Jr., then we would have a very good chance of making it to the NBA Finals and ultimately winning a championship. I don't think that our guards are holding us back whatsoever. I really hate the notion that you can't win a championship playing 2 undersized guards, because look what we did last year without Nurk and with 2 forwards who were awful from the second round on. A lot of the negative things you listed don't have anything to do with the guards. The lack of ball movement, bottom tier in assists, rely heavily on pick and rolls, that has to do with the coaching. But you also said this later, I'm going to segue into this one. You said, I hope you can talk about this in your Monday mailbag, but what do you think about our style of play compared to other teams? We rely heavily on our backcourt, but there's not much ball movement. We are always near to the last in assists in the league, and even when we had good defensive wings in Harkless and Chief, we still didn't average over 10 steals a game, and our offense is so easy to exploit. Clay and Draymond said in the pregame interview before the Western Conference Finals that we are confident that we know how to beat the Blazers. It's pretty much the same team, meaning it's the same type of offense. And what really annoyed me was I was watching a Summer League game this past week and Terry Stotts was being interviewed and he said, we're going to play the same way we did last year. Basically saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Which really put me off next season. It's all okay in the regular season, but it's not hard to double two undersized guards and make other players beat them. New Orleans, who wasn't a Golden State, did it arguably better than them and swept us. I like the moves that Olshey made, but Stotts insisting that we play the same way scares me, and we got that clown for another couple of years. And you're kind of repeating what my opinion on the situation has been over the past couple of years. I've never been a Stotts fan. I don't like the way our offense is run. The lack of ball movement, the basicness, and how heavily it relies on pick and rolls. The fact that there's no designed cuts to the rim. Literally, the only designed cut to the rim is the backdoor lobs that Layman would get last year, and we gave away Layman because Stotts didn't like him. We are always near the bottom in assists, and it is really easy to game plan for our offense. People rave about Stotts as a coach and his system, but his offensive system is actually very, very basic. It relies heavily on having two guards that can hit very difficult shots and bail the offense out of nothing happening in it. It relies very heavily on guards creating something out of nothing. And in the playoffs, it is very easy to game plan for. In the first round last season, Dame just went absolutely insane, capping it off with that 50-point game. In the second round, we got by a lot of times due to Denver switching Jamal Murray onto Rodney Hood and then us just simply posting up Rodney Hood. That was a series that we barely squeaked out, and I don't think Denver was all that good. And then in the Western Conference Finals, we blew so many 15 to 17 point leads, and it was kind of just like Golden State would turn up the pressure defensively and our offense would result in a bunch of nothingness. Our offense would get completely bogged down and we would have scoring droughts, and Golden State would use that to fuel their runs on the offensive end, and they would make amazing comebacks pretty much every single game. So I'm not a fan of our coaching. I'm not a fan of our offense. There's other different things that I'm not a fan of that Stotts does or doesn't do. But at this point, Stotts isn't going anywhere, so Olshey has to try to surround him with guys that'll make teams pay for trapping Dame and CJ. He has to try and surround him with shooters to run kind of like a basic guard-heavy Houston Rockets type of offense. Josiah Peterson says, just curious, where do you live in Oregon? Closer to Salem or up north in Portland? I actually don't live in Oregon. I live right across the river in Vancouver, Washington. PokeBob18 says, congrats on moving over to Blazers Uprise. Looking forward to continued amazing content. Couple questions for next Monday mailbag. And I just want to thank you for the kind words, man. I appreciate all your guys' support. Jumping into PokeBob's questions. Part 1, he says, what players on the team, new or old, do you think are going to surprise people next season? That could be by having a breakout season or not even seeing the court. I think Hazonia is going to be disappointing for some people because there's a lot of Blazer fans that for some reason are very high on him, and I don't think he'll end up being a regular contributor. I think he'll be a Stauskas level player at best. That's really the only player that I see being surprising because everybody else I think is going to live up to expectations. I mean, Anthony Simons could surprise some people and break out into a 6th Man of the Year candidate, and there is a large portion of the fan base that actually believes that he can do just that. Part 2, your question, how do you feel about all the changes in the NBA and how do you think the Blazers will fit in the new West? What are some of your favorite changes that happened and what are you looking forward to seeing? I'm happy Durant went to the Eastern Conference. I'm happy that Jimmy Butler didn't come over to the Western Conference. I'm happy that Kawhi didn't go to the Lakers. There was a lot of good things about this offseason for sure. In terms of where the Blazers fit in the new West, I think it'll be harder to win the first round than it was last year unless we get the 1 seed. But while it's harder to win the first round, I think it will be easier to make the NBA Finals, if that makes more sense. That's just because the teams are much more even. Whereas before, you kind of had a couple different tiers of teams making the Western Conference compared to one tier of 7 teams this next season. Michael Sherry says, who would be a potential Portland addition this offseason before the season starts? And I'm thinking somebody like Kenneth Faried, Amir Johnson, Jonas Jerebko. We need a backup center. Right now we don't have one, so I expect Portland to fill out its roster with a backup big man. So there was some trade questions in this mailbag, and I'm just going to say this now. The Blazers are not going to make a substantial trade before the start of next season. So I've been skipping over some of these trade questions because of that. If we are going to make a trade, it's going to be something very, very small, like trading for a minimum level player, trading for a guy like Willie Hernangomez and bringing him in with the Jake Layman traded player exception, something like that. We're not going to be trading Bazemore or Whiteside, which are really the only two players that we could trade in a substantial trade. If we were looking to move them, we probably would have moved them by now, and we probably wouldn't have introduced them so fast. So the Danilo Gallinari, Aaron Gordon type stuff, I don't see that stuff being all that relevant until at least December 15th, January 15th, sometime around there. Kim Ming Chu says, how do you think about the Blazers defense next year? Seems like we got better defense in the post, but got worse defense on the wing. And I agree with that. Adding Hassan Whiteside definitely helped shore up our interior defense, but we don't have that versatile hybrid wing like an Aminu or a Harkless, the type of wings that are good to put on guys like LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. However, to defend those guys, I think it has to be more of a team effort. I think everybody has to be on a string, and when you have a big like Hassan Whiteside on the interior, it definitely helps the team out. So overall, I don't know if we got any better defensively, but I don't know if we got all that much worse, and I do think that with Rodney Hood likely to start as small forward, with Kent Bazemore off the bench, with Zach Collins hopefully improving and being a better offensive option than Aminu, I do think our offense got noticeably better. Lil Ben says, when will Nurk come back? Half the season? And it was reported directly from Neil Olshey that they're expecting Nurkic back in February, which was disappointing for me because with the way it looked like he was progressing, I was expecting sometime in November or December. It turns out February. Hopefully he can return before that and show that he's back up to speed so that we feel more comfortable in pursuing a Hassan Whiteside trade, because I think the best move is going to be trading Whiteside at the deadline. Michael the Original Dizzy D says, so what are available free agents that are versatile 3-4 defenders that we should sign to fill out the roster? And honestly, I don't really think there's any out there. Maybe a Luke Mbah Mute, but he's always hurt and he's not that great of a player. Right now you pretty much have a couple point guards, Jeremy Lin, Trey Burke still available, and then you got some big men. The wings have been pretty much all snatched up. WTF Main says Whiteside is better than Nurk and Nurkic will be supplanted. Whiteside is definitely not better than Nurkic. Nurkic had a season last year that Whiteside will never touch, and Nurkic will not be supplanted by Whiteside, because if Whiteside has a season like Nurkic did last year, Whiteside will probably make at least $20 million a year. Nurkic is making 12. Nurkic is also only 24, Whiteside is 30. Whiteside at this point is a rental until the trade deadline or until the end of the season. Dustrum says, do you like Michael Porter Jr.? And honestly, before he had his injury issues, I didn't think that he was going to be that good of an NBA player. I didn't think his game translated. I don't think he's an elite shooter like some people seem to think. I think he'll be like a 35, maybe 36% three-point shooter at best. I don't think he has enough creativity with the ball to regularly break guys down off the dribble. I don't think he has the athleticism to blow by guys and finish over guys consistently. And honestly, scoring is really his only strength. He's not a good defender. He doesn't rebound all that well. He doesn't play as big as he's listed. So he seems like the type of player that's destined to be a somewhat inefficient volume scorer on a bad team who provides little to nothing else. Think of an Andrew Wiggins type of player. That's the type of player I think Michael Porter Jr. could easily end up being. Now, it's interesting because he is in a good culture. He is on a winning team. I just don't think he'll be a star like a lot of other people seem to think. His hype from high school has carried over all the way into the NBA, even though he's played like 3 games since high school. His whole family is also very injured. His brother Jonte Porter has had like an ACL tear, and he's injured right now. I forget with what. I think it might be another ACL tear or something. I don't know if it's been 1 or 2, but Jonte Porter's always been hurt. And then they have a sister who has had like 5 ACL tears in her lifetime. Like, they got basketball genes, but they also got injury prone genes as well. And this is going to be the final question because I've been recording for almost 25 minutes. You guys asked me a ton of questions. I love having a bunch of questions to choose from. It just sucks having to leave a few out. David something says, what do you think about Lillard's new Supermax deal? I think he deserves it, but at the same time, isn't $49 million a year a little too much? Doesn't that hurt our salary cap in the future years? And honestly, $49 million in 2024, 2025 isn't gonna be as much as $49 million seems like right now. That's because the salary cap will probably be at least $20 million more than it is now. So like a $35 to $40 million contract will be worth a $50 million contract in 2024, 2025. I mean, who knows? NBA might continue to succeed and they might bring in a new TV deal and that salary cap might be $150 million. We have no idea. I just know that people base that number a little too much off of how it seems like in the present, and they don't take into account how conditions will change by the time that year comes. Also, he's Damian Lillard. You pay whatever to keep him. I mean, think about how many wins Dame provides us with his leadership off the floor, the culture that he sets, as well as his play on the court. He provides us with like 20 to 25 wins a year, in my opinion. That's definitely worth $50 million. Considering we have a payroll of like $150 million right now, paying $50 million for 20 wins would be worth it, because that would equate to 60 wins for a $150 million roster. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this week's mailbag. If you have a question, please leave it in the comment section below. Just please no more trade questions, because I don't think those are really relevant, and it was tough to sift through all the questions you guys had for me this week. Remember the Patreon link in the description below. If you go donate $25 a month or more on there, then you'll have an opportunity to join me on some live streams, which I think is a pretty cool opportunity to give some of you guys. So anyway, that's a wrap for this video. I hope you enjoyed. This has been Tori. I'll see you guys later. Have a great week. Peace out. Go Blazers.